fantastic.
When people talk about the best zombie games, it's easy to think of Dead Rising. The 2006 title took the classic concept of zombies in a shopping mall and ran with it. It entertained players with its zombie-killing action, but tested them with its strict time limit, idiotic survivors, and tiny text. But its distinctive gameplay was what made Dead Rising special. That, and Frank West, the man who's covered wars, you know.
I've covered wars, you know.
Dead Rising gave way to Dead Rising 2. The franchise reins had been given over to Blue Castle Games, later renamed Capcom Vancouver, and they did a damn good job expanding the formula. The introduction of Chuck Green, an everyman dedicated to protecting his daughter, made Dead Rising 2's story more personal. Dead Rising 2's greater success meant the next game had to live up to higher expectations. Dead Rising 3 offered bigger zombie hordes and crazier combo weapons at the cost of dumbed-down difficulty. It still did well, but the game remains a divisive entry among fans. Though I'm pretty sure we can all agree Dead Rising 4 sucks. Everything that made Dead Rising special was thrown out or made barely recognizable. It did okay on release, but the fans ripped it to shreds. Following an attempt at Dead Rising 5, Capcom Vancouver was shuttered, and Dead Rising was, ironically, dead for the foreseeable future. That was until 2024. In a year already filled with surprises, we got another with the reveal of Dead Rising Deluxe Remaster. A next-gen upgrade of the original, Capcom, with help from Neobards, is giving the series a second chance. Was it a successful comeback?
Yeah, well, I'm freelance, pal. I don't make my living waiting for the TV to tell me what to cover.
Frank West gets word of something unusual going on in a small Colorado town. He charters a helicopter to check it out, but is forced to make an emergency leap onto the local mall's rooftop. He discovers Willamette has a zombie problem, and one old lady later, the living dead are shuffling by the thousands into the mall. Frank discovers the outbreak was caused by Carlito Keys, and he needs to figure out why before his helicopter comes back 3 days later.
So do I have your permission to cover this story? Or not?
Dead Rising Deluxe hits the same beats as the original. What starts as a Dawn of the Dead successor becomes something more as you progress. It's a great story filled with intrigue and memorable characters. Tonally, the game strikes a fine balance between serious and silly. The dramatic and occasionally sad plot is broken up with gameplay that sees you kill hundreds of zombies while racing against the clock. It's this race against time that makes Dead Rising unique. Your punishment for constantly digging around is missing out on the rest of the story. You can then choose to either continue the game and get a lesser ending, or start from scratch with a more experienced Frank.
I'm Frank West, photojournalist. And right now I'd rather have an explanation than your thanks, Brad.
Dead Rising's overall plot and characters are intact, but a couple things were tweaked. Obviously, there's new voice acting, but some of the characters have changed. Carlito's motivation is unchanged. He still seeks revenge against the US government for their mass cattle experiments which led to zombifying Wasp escaping and destroying his home village, Santa Cabeza. The game still satirizes rampant consumerism and the meat industry. Humans are as gluttonous as zombies, and we're willing to do anything to satisfy our stomachs. Where the details were massaged pertains to the psychopaths.
Years ago, I was Chinese.
I have a reputation to uphold!
If you played the original, you know Dead Rising features some of the most memorable bosses ever made. Whether it's a frenzied grocery store manager or a delusional cult leader, the psychopaths stuck with you. All the psychopaths are back with some minor tweaks. Cliff is still a shell-shocked vet, but he's traded in his fear of the Viet Cong for the fear of moles. Kent no longer shows you his sexiest shot, but his funniest one. Larry is no longer a walking stereotype, but someone who puts the butch in butcher. But hey, you can now spare Thomas, at the cost of leaving him psychologically scarred. Aww. These changes are a point of contention for some people. Personally, I'm either or. I think Larry's redesign is a huge upgrade. He's still Asian, just less of a caricature. The other character changes are iffier. Cliff being a generic war vet instead of a Vietnam vet minimizes the character's impact. If they were going to change it, they could have at least used a better word to describe Frank besides mole. Kent's new photo challenge is a mixed bag. I don't mind erotica being removed, but I think the challenge requirements needed tweaking. Instead of something very funny, why not your most violent shot? That way, you keep the original line while still changing the outcome of the situation. It'd make more sense in the subsequent cutscene for Kent to be disappointed over that, instead of Frank out-funnying him.
Beginner's luck. That's all.
It's weird how Cliff and Kent were changed, while someone like Joe stayed the same. At the end of the day, it's still Dead Rising, and if these changes bother you, keep playing the original, or go outside and get some vitamin D.
Fine. Well, I'll just get my information somewhere else. Thank you very much.
Dead Rising Deluxe is a remake, but not quite a remake, if that makes any sense.
Kinda.
Capcom and Neobards did their best to preserve the original's essence while ironing out all the kinks, hence the Deluxe Remaster's subtitle. The result looks, feels, and plays like classic Dead Rising, but with modern sensibilities.
Yeah.
The biggest change to the gameplay is the controls. The original Dead Rising's controls were kind of clunky. Moving and attacking was fine, but aiming weapons felt sluggish. You used the right trigger to aim and the attack button to fire. Aiming Frank's camera was done with the left trigger.
Everybody got that?
It was confusing, and even more confusing was how he could move and shoot with his camera, but not with a gun. Deluxe Remaster doesn't do away with the original controls. Instead, it offers a choice between a modern control scheme or the classic one. I played through the game using the new controls, and they felt great. Aiming is much better, and Frank learned how to move and shoot with a gun. Dodging is relocated to the circle button, so no more accidental rolling when moving Frank. I'm glad they kept the original controls as an option for purists, though this new control scheme and the improvements it comes with is a huge upgrade. Dead Rising Deluxe doesn't stray much from the original's design. You still kill hundreds of zombies using conventional and unconventional means. Knives, chainsaws, TVs, and more can be used against the undead. Killing zombies, defeating psychopaths, saving survivors, etc. earns Frank PP. PP is this game's experience, and once you earn enough, Frank levels up, upgrading one of his stats or unlocking a skill move. New threats are introduced over the next 3 days. First are the cultists, followed by special forces. Cultists often appear in groups. They're harmless until you get close, then they attack or worse, try to kidnap you. Once their leader is dispatched, the cultists aren't a problem until special forces arrive sometime later. They're here to clean up the mess and can be a pain in the ass thanks to their hit scan assault rifles. This is where disemboweling becomes your best friend. Besides the human enemies, there are psychopaths. These are the game's bosses and test the player's ability. Your reward for defeating psychopaths is a big PP boost and access to a special weapon.
Can't believe a worthless prick like you did me in.
The real threat of Dead Rising isn't the zombies or humans, it's time. The clock is always ticking and will admit, and as the days progress, new cases pop up. This could be new story missions or side quests. What you pursue is up to you, but be forewarned. As time ticks away, so does the window of opportunity. Once the case is gone, it's gone. Time management is still vital in Dead Rising Deluxe, but the various gameplay improvements make it less stressful. I still had my close calls, but I always felt like I made it with enough time to spare. Compare that to the original, where it seemed like you'd never make it because of those damn survivors.
Shit, just leave me alone, you son of a bitch!
If there's one thing Deluxe Remaster had to improve, it was the survivors. Escorting survivors in the original was a huge risk. They were dumb as rocks, either stopping dead in their tracks for no reason or running off to shove the nearest zombie. Even though you were rewarded buckets of PP for saving them, sometimes you wondered if it was worth the effort. Well, great news, the survivors don't suck! They can take care of themselves and be a helpful ally during combat. The cool feature they added is the ability to raise the survivor's mood by giving them certain items. This makes them more likely to help Frank and less likely to run into a wall. I had little to no problems escorting survivors. Even when I had a small posse, they stayed by my side until we returned to the safe house.
Haven't had a workout like that in a while. Say, where do you keep the food around here?
While I like how Frank has actual conversations with them, I'm iffy on the decision to have them point out items of interest. I understand it from a gameplay perspective, but it leads to total whiplash. You could save a survivor from a harrowing experience, and then a couple minutes later, they're like,
The Space Rider machine is still running. Do you think people are actually riding it?
Oh, really?
The last aspect I want to discuss is Infinity Mode. In the original, being the game with the best ending unlocked overtime, the game's true ending. Beating that unlocked Infinity Mode. The goal was simple, survive in the mall as long as possible. The challenge came from managing your constantly dwindling health and defending yourself from the hostile humans dotted about. Cool concept, but it was a chore to complete because you couldn't save your progress. So if you wanted to unlock Arthur's boxers, you had to play the game for 14 hours straight. I imagine this red ring several Xboxes and several eyeballs. In my opinion, Infinity was fun to dick around in, but not something worth completing. I honestly preferred Chop Till You Drop's wacky mini-games over Infinity's endless grind. DRDR's Infinity shits all over the original. They added the option to suspend your game progress and pick it up later. This makes obtaining the Z-Saber and Arthur's Boxers feasibly possible. Plus, there isn't a cap on the number of days, making this mode truly infinite.
Zombies, angels, people, whatever. Let's all get drunk.
Dead Rising Deluxe does what a remake remaster should. Preserves the original spirit but updates everything else. The new controls and expanded mechanics give you so many more options, which is impressive considering how layered the original's gameplay was. What's even more impressive is you're not forced to use them. You don't have to fast forward time if you don't want to, nor do you have to keep autosave on. All these new features come with a catch: diminished difficulty. It's no secret the original was brutal, but there was a certain satisfaction watching Frank level up from a weakling to a badass. The more time you spent playing Dead Rising, the more familiar you became with the mall's layout and where important items were. Dead Rising Deluxe is way more forgiving than the OG. How forgiving? By the time I ripped out Brock's intestines, I was almost level 50. They went a bit overboard with PP. You earn a lot more than before, which means you unlock the good stuff much faster. I like how they expanded the photography mechanic, but I don't like how easy you can farm PP from taking pictures. I'm torn because I love the improvements, but I also feel the challenge should have been bumped up as a result.
I try. You got a point.
The original Dead Rising was a technical showcase for the then new Xbox 360. The large zombie hordes were and are still impressive, but the real star was the Willamette Parkview Mall. It felt like a real place you could shop at, though I'm not sure how many malls had butcher shops in the underground area. The layout of the mall is preserved, but it's been given several touch-ups. Paradise Plaza now has an oceanic theme, complete with a whale statue in the middle. Look up at the walls enclosing Leisure Park, and you'll see billboards dotted about. It plays with your mind because it's the same place, just with added detail. Barring some poppin', this is a nice looking game.
Hey, this is no time to ogle pretty girls, son.
Dead Rising Deluxe sound design is interesting. Due to legal reasons, none of the original dialogue is used. All the cast has been replaced with new actors, and in my opinion, they're pretty good, barring one exception. I think the one that surprised me most was Jazz Patrick as Frank West. We all know and love TJ Rotolo's performance as the freelance journalist. TJ's performance solidified Frank as an up-and-comer looking for his big break.
Yeah, well, I'm freelance, pal. I don't make my living waiting for the TV to tell me what to cover.
Jazz's performance makes Frank familiar yet different. He's still in Willamette looking for a story, but you get the feeling he has some experience under his belt. I really noticed this with Frank's body language. His little smirks and whatnot give you the feeling he's learned a thing or two. Compare that to the OG Frank, where he's clearly still learning the trade.
Can you get me on the rooftop of that mall?
You gotta be kidding me. Man, you are nuts.
Can you get me on the rooftop of that mall?
You gotta be kidding me. Oh, man, you are nuts.
Other characters like Jesse, Otis, Carlito, and Adam sound great. Brad, what the hell happened? Brad was a no-nonsense DHS agent. He was a man of authority and a man of reason. But in DRDR, he sounds like a disgruntled dad.
Sounds plausible. Or it could be some serious bullshit.
Sounds plausible. Or it could be some serious bullshit.
There are times when he's decent, but the overall performance is a misfire.
Well, shit.
I don't blame the actor, I blame the direction he was given. The sound design is good, but the lack of ambience makes them all awfully quiet. The original zombie moans let you know that no matter where you were, zombies followed.
Zombies, huh? Had a feeling you'd show up.
Zombies.
Nope.
DRDR retains the original's kick-ass soundtrack. The iconic ball music and boss themes are here, and nearly 20 years later, I still want to give away my possessions and move into a Chevy.
As soon as Brad gets his hands on that terrorist, I guess it'll be case closed, huh?
Dead Rising Deluxe Remaster resurrects the 2006 original for a new generation. The spirit of Dead Rising is alive and well, but you won't be griping at Oz's constant calls. Dead Rising Deluxe reminds me a lot of Dead Rising Chop Till You Drop. That game refitted Dead Rising onto the Wii by way of the Resident Evil 4 engine. It preserved the core of the original, but made several compromises.
Do you have any idea what you've done?
Dead Rising Deluxe is the opposite. It updates the original, but expands upon it. It fixes the original's most infamous flaws and introduces some new stuff that doesn't clash with the original's design.
Well, it's in focus. And, the composition's okay, I suppose.
However, I don't feel DRDR outdoes the original. Don't get me wrong, I love what they added, but the original had such a lightning in a bottle quality that's hard to emulate. What we have is a deluxe remaster that doesn't outdo the original, rather, it complements it. The original offers a refreshing take on the zombie game, but has some mechanics that, while tolerable, are outdated. The Deluxe Remaster fixes those problems while losing some of the magic in the process.
Hold your horses, babe. I'm the one asking the questions here.
I'm glad Capcom gave Dead Rising a second chance. Dead Rising's return means an opportunity to chart a new course for the series and potentially right the wrongs of the later entries. Though if Capcom gives Dead Rising 2 the Deluxe Remaster treatment, bring back Peter fucking Fleming. Dead Rising Deluxe Remaster gets an 8 out of 10.